The law is hunger, and today it hunts first. Sand explodes as Talus dives, a bronze shadow cutting open dawn. Mara bolts from the brittle scrub, lungs burning, heart counting the distance between talons and fur. Ash squeaks, a bright sound in a world that punishes brightness. Sable growls, run to the yucca, little Ember. Wind lifts the scent of blood from somewhere unseen, a cruel promise. Talus screams, a blade of sound that says, yield the weak. Mara said, not him. Her paws stitch frantic paths over cracked earth, the crust breaking like old glass. Kade watches from a basalt ledge, eyes hard, waiting for fortune to tilt. The bloom was brief at midnight, ghost flowers open and gone by sunrise, and now the heat sharpens like a spear. Ash tumbles, rights himself, and aims for shade that keeps shrinking. Sable pivots and shows her spine, an old banner, daring the sky. Talus drops lower, wind thundering off his feathers. The sun rises a finger higher, and makes mercy smaller. Mara snaps, left. Ash. The pup veers. The shadow misses by a breath. The desert records nothing and forgives less. The sand eats the footprints before they learn to matter. Heat climbs the ribs of the valley and tightens every breath. Mara noses ash beneath a brittle cholla arm, then scans the sky for the bronze hook. Sable, said the shade moves, so move before it leaves. A grasshopper clicks, then vanishes into the pale. Kade pads closer, casual as drought, and pretends curiosity. Mara said, find your own ledge. He smirks, turns a pebble with one claw, and keeps their fear measured. Talus circles high, a compass of hunger drawing tighter rings. Ash whispers to the dust and names it water. A hush rides in from the salt flats, heavy as a closing door. Sable coughs and sits, her sides shaking in small waves. Listen, she said, the ground speaks before it breaks. The ground speaks in cracks, in tiny pops, that sting pause and promise more. A gust lifts the last perfume of the ghost bloom, sweet as a lie. The sun peels silver from Sable's whiskers, and burns it away. Mara said, we run at my mark. Ash looks up, pupils blown wide, believing in marks more than miracles. Kade waits for a mistake. Talus waits for a shadow to vanish. The shade thins to lace, and choices shrink with it. Sable rises and sways, then steadies her legs like old pillars. West, she said, there's a culvert that remembers rain. Kade's ears twitch at the word rain as if it were meat. Mara measures the distance and changes it into courage, grain by grain. Ash said, will the dark be cool? She nods, though cool has not lived here since spring. Talus folds his path and tests the air above the wash. Larks go silent as if silence might make them smaller. A black beetle drags a seed across a line of cracked clay, stubborn as hope. The earth brightens to white, and then brighter still. Sable said now. They run low, not fast, saving the thread inside their chests. Kade ghosts their flank, harmless as a shadow until it isn't. The wind tastes of metal, as if the day is melting in the mouth of the sky. Mara said, if he dives, split apart. Ash nods and keeps his tiny paws close to hers. The valley holds its breath, and nothing generous moves. The culvert is a black coin on the sand, and every step bets a life. Heat ghosts leap from the ground and make doubles of the runners. Sable's breath rasps like paper rubbed thin. Kade drifts closer and says nothing, which says enough. Talus tilts, then slips into a fast spiral, hunger narrowing to purpose. Mara said, hold, break. They snap apart, 2 streaks and a spark, and the shadow chooses wrong for a heartbeat. Ash skims the lip of a dry arroyo and almost falls, then claws back a miracle. Sable veers toward a thorn, takes the sting, and keeps moving with stubborn dignity. The culvert grows no larger and still holds all the cool in the world. Wind stacks heat against their faces like a wall. Kade said, you will share that shadow. Mara does not answer because breath is currency, and she is down to coins. Talus screams and falls like iron. Impact shakes the air and carves silence into the day. Talus slams dust where ash had been, and grit rains like ash from a small fire. Mara body checks the pup into motion, and feels the hawk's wind skim her spine. Sable snaps at a wingtip, and buys a half-second with an old scar. "Go," she said, "spend me if you must." The culvert leaps nearer, a black throat promising breath. Kade breaks into a sprint, eyes bright with equations that pay only himself. "Ah!" Talus claws empty sand and launches again, fury cold as stone. Mara said inside, "Now." Ash dives into the dark and vanishes into cool that smells of iron and damp memory. Mara follows and turns to face the light, chest hammering. Talus flares on the lip and glares with a red coin for an eye. Kade skids to the rim and smiles without kindness. Sable arrives last, a banner ragged but unfallen. The sun leans down as if to see the debt. The desert will collect. It always does. Mara rests against the damp culvert wall, her chest rattling with dust. Ash presses close, his fur trembling like reeds in a storm. "Sable," said, "the dark is no gift. It only hides us until the sun burns deeper." Kade lingers at the lip, his outline sharp against the blaze. Talus waits above, talons scraping stone, a reminder that shadows are never safe for long. The smell of iron water clings to the tunnel, cool enough to tease hope but too faint to quench. Mara said, "You breathe because we fought, not because this place chose us." Ash lifts his nose, searching for the scent of anything alive. Sable lowers herself carefully, bones stiff with years, and closes her eyes only for a breath. Kade mutters, "The weak will cost the strong as always." Mara's ears flick, but her silence is heavier than any bite. The culvert hums with the weight of heat above, each sound magnified, every heartbeat loud enough to betray them. Talus screams again, distant but never gone, and the air trembles. Ash whispers, "It smells like rain once lived here." Mara leans close and nods though her throat cracks with thirst. "Sable," said, "rain has memory, but it doesn't return for our need." Kade scratches dust from his paw, unconcerned with the ache filling the tunnel. Above them Talus wheels, his shadow flickering across the entrance like a sundial of hunger. Mara said, "Close your eyes, Ash, and imagine water running loud." The pup obeys, paws kneading at the soil. Sable exhales, her chest a brittle rhythm, and lets silence thicken. The air carries faint echoes, the culvert amplifying every movement until even a swallow feels like thunder. Ash stirs, asking, "Will we see night?" Mara presses her muzzle to his head and says, "Night is a door, and we will reach it." The desert outside hisses under the weight of the sun, indifferent to promises. Light shifts as the sun leans westward, slicing the tunnel mouth into sharper gold. Kade peers in, his smirk edged with calculation. "You'll slow and I'll pass," he murmurs. Mara bares her teeth but says nothing, because strength must be saved like water. "Sable," said, "rivalry is a fire that burns both dens." Her eyes glimmer with fatigue and history. Ash shuffles closer, his paws dusted with tiny pebbles that fall like warnings. Mara whispers, "Stay behind me, always behind." Outside, Talus still circles, patient as a stone waiting to fall. Heat presses downward, creeping even into this hollow, and the air grows heavier. Sable coughs a dry rasp, each note echoing like breaking reeds. Ash says, "I hear the desert talking." Mara answers, "It talks in hunger." The air cools slightly as evening leans, yet exhaustion gnaws sharper than heat. Sable drags herself closer to Mara, her breath shallow. "Remember the paths of old," she said. "Every route once showed us where water lies." Mara nods, though roots have long since withered. Ash gazes outward, eyes bright with belief, whispering names of things he has never seen. Rivers, clouds, meadows. Kade sneers, dreams waste strength. Mara replies, dreams are what keep paws moving. Outside, Talus lifts higher, his silhouette shrinking as if patience has limits. The desert sighs, a long groan through the cracked earth. Ash presses his nose into Mara's flank, and she steadies, her resolve a wall. Sable said, if one falls, carry the memory, not the body. Dusk stains the culvert mouth violet, and the world tilts toward danger cloaked in shadow. Mara rises, muscles trembling but ready. Ash asks, will night be safe? She whispers, night is never safe, only different. Sable pulls herself forward and steadies, her eyes fading but fierce. Kade circles the rim, deciding whether patience or boldness feeds best. Talus vanishes into the darkening sky, leaving silence that feels heavier than sound. Mara said, when stars burn, we move. Ash nods, his small chest heaving with trust. The desert breathes cooler now, but its cruelty only shifts shape. A cricket chirps, one fragile note of persistence. Sable said, remember this sound, for it means life still fights. Night gathers its teeth, and the culvert holds them one breath longer. Night loosens its latch, and the desert exhales a thinner cruelty. Mara leads from the culvert, paws whispering over powdery sand that remembers heat. Ash said, the stars look like wells. She answers, they are maps, not water. Sable limps behind, each step a quiet bargain. Kade drifts at their flank, all patience and teeth he keeps hidden. A faint breeze brings the metal tang of a far fence and the sour musk of coyotes. Talus is gone, but the sky keeps his shape like a bruise. Mara said, we cross the flats before first light. Ash nods, trusting the rhythm of her steps. The ground flickers with spider tracks neat as stitching. Hunger tightens the hollow under their ribs, a thread pulling toward breakage. Sable said, there is a seep near the dead mesquite. She coughs and swallows pain like grit. A lonesome coyote yips, and silence folds over the sound. Kade smiles at the dark and keeps his pace slow. The night offers no gift, only a longer path. The seep is a rumor pressed into clay, but rumors are worth chasing when bone sings. Mara slows, testing each patch for the memory of damp. Ash said, I hear a drip. He hears hope, and hope makes echoes. Sable noses a cracked root and whispers, this held water when your mother was small. The air cools a breath, then warms again, as if the land regretted kindness. Kade steps ahead and sniffs the hollow, then glances back with a thin grin. Empty, he says, but the scent of mice is sweet. Mara clamps her jaw against the hot flare of anger. Hunger is a trap baited with mistakes. A rattlesnake's dry rattle trembles from a tangle of ocotillo. Ash freezes, pupils wide. Mara said still. The sound drills the night, patient and deadly. Sable lifts her head and sets her body between the pup and the thorns. The rattle fades to a warning that builds again. The seep yields nothing. The desert keeps its accounts exact. Wind turns and carries voices that do not belong to foxes. And human scent rides in, sharp with oil and iron. Headlights skim the far ridge, and the stars blink out in their path. Mara said down. They flatten into scrubbed shadows, bodies becoming small truths. A truck grinds by, and metal clanks speak of traps that grin even when empty. Ash whispers, do they hunt us? She answers, they hunt everything that forgets to hide. Sable's breath scratches, her strength debited by the night's long ledger. Kade watches the truck and calculates a new line through the flats. The engine fades, but fear lingers like a burr inside the skin. A distant owl calls, soft as apology. Mara gathers them and cuts toward basalt, searching for windbreak and mice. The horizon pales with a hint of failing stars. She said, we must feed before day owns the ground. Ash nods, brave because he must be. Basalt gives them cover and a chorus of small lives beating under stone. Mara tests cracks with soft steps, listening for the jitter of fear that means food. Ash said, "I can be quiet like stone." She smiles with her eyes and guides his weight to the patient stance. Sable settles to watch the sky for the hawk that is not there yet. Kade slides nearer, whispering, "Share the first catch, and I'll find the second." Hunger makes cruel bargains feel fair. Mara said, "We share when the small eat first." The rock hums with wind, and a mouse's whisk touches air that knows predators. A quick pounce, a startled squeak, and silence again. Mara drops the kill at Ash's paws. "Eat," she said, "grow teeth for the day." Sable refuses her share with a tilt of pride, then accepts half when Mara insists. Kade's tail twitches with contained impatience. The east edge of the sky brightens like a blade being pulled. The wind stiffens and gathers dust into a veil that speaks of morning heat and harder trials. Talus returns as a dark stitch rethreading the sky. Mara said basalt to wash, then thorn, then shadow. The route is a prayer built from pain. Ash gulps the last bite and wipes his face on Mara's leg, small dignity restored. Sable rises slow and shaky, but her eyes flare with old fire. Kade edges ahead, testing each gap for advantage. A coyote's silhouette appears on the far rim, then another, quiet and organized. The pack moves with the certainty of bills coming due. Talus tilts, reading their panic from above. Mara said, "We run broken, not fast." They pour into the wash as light ignites the day's furnace. Dust lifts around their legs like ghosts woken for one more chase. The rising sun erases night's forgiveness in a single merciless stroke. Dawn burns the wash clean, shadows gone, and truth walks naked. The coyotes hold the ridge, but they do not rush, they wait. Mara said, "They herd us, not chase us." Ash presses low, trembling, yet his eyes widen with defiance. Sable whispers, "Coyotes starve too." Her tone holds no blame, only weary recognition. Kade watches both sides, lips twitching as if he already rehearses betrayal. Talus circles wide, feather tips cutting the sky into ragged seams. The land itself feels like a net tightening, every crack of clay a line. Mara said, "We move west through thorn. Their teeth cannot follow deep." Ash nods, a child who knows obedience is survival. The air carries no mercy, only dust. Coyotes fan out, their shapes patient, and their silence worse than growls. Sable stumbles, then forces herself straight, a flag refusing to fall. The sun climbs and brands their backs with fire. The trap is closing. Thorn maze rises jagged from sand, skeletal fingers clawing sky. Mara drives Ash forward, each thorn scrape attacks on fur. "Sable," said, "pain is a toll worth paying." Her voice shakes, but her stride does not break. Kade hesitates at the edge, tail twitching, unwilling to risk his coat. Coyotes watch from behind, pacing, unwilling to bleed for the same path. Talus tilts, baffled by prey that runs into knives. Mara said, "In thorn, we hide, in thorn we live." Ash whimpers but obeys, his small body weaving under spines. The maze shreds air, and the scent of blood sharpens. Kade lingers, then steps back, eyes calculating another route. Coyotes close their circle, knowing patience will starve courage. Sable's flank catches, fur torn free, yet she snarls and moves again. The desert does not pity those who bleed. It only measures how long they walk. Inside thorn, silence cuts deeper than branches. Mara guides Ash through a crawl space, her body scraping raw. "Dot," he whispers, "it smells like death here." She answers, "Death leaves its breath behind." Bones litter the ground, fragile memories of other chases. Sable presses through, her breath ragged, blood-streaking bark. Coyotes prowl perimeter, their eyes burning through gaps like lanterns. Kade slips away, skirting outside, unseen but never gone. Talus lands briefly on a high branch, feathers flaring, but the thorn denies him passage. Mara said, "This place takes skin but gives seconds." Ash licks blood from his paw, a gesture of stubborn innocence. Sable groans, then bites the thorn itself as if daring it to break her teeth. Outside, the sun climbs higher, heat baking thorn into brittle spears. Time is a weapon, and it belongs to those who wait. The hidden truth arrives not with teeth, but with drought. Beneath thorn roots lies not water but a crack in the earth, bleeding smoke. The desert is burning from within, unseen fire licking its marrow. Mara halts, nostrils flaring at the acrid sting. Ash coughs, eyes watering. "Sable," said the ground itself is dying. Her voice is awe and despair woven thin. Coyotes retreat, hackles raised, unwilling to chase into fumes. Kade stops far back, his grin gone, the fire's glow reflecting in his eyes. Talus screams and veers away, the smoke curling skyward. Mara said, "Not hunter, not thorn. Our enemy is earth itself." The heat doubles, rising from below and above, sealing exits. Ash trembles, whispering, "Will the ground eat us?" Mara answers, "We move before it swallows." They push forward, lungs clawed raw, into a furnace disguised as safety. The thorn breaks open into a barren clearing, no refuge, only air choked with smoke. Mara stumbles out first, fur streaked red with thorn cuts. Ash bursts beside her, panting, his body quaking but still moving. Sable lags, then emerges, her chest rattling like loose stone. Kade arrives last, unmarked, eyes sharp with calculation. Coyotes keep distance, uneasy with fire they do not understand. Talus wheels higher, abandoning the maze, his cry swallowed by haze. The ground rumbles faintly, a low growl that warns of collapse. Mara said, "No more hiding. The desert burns us all." Ash presses close, whispering, "Then we burn together." Sable nods, her old eyes alight with grim pride. The truth is not teeth or talons, it is fire, patient and absolute. The desert does not choose sides. It only consumes. The clearing heaves with smoke, the ground trembling beneath scorched paws. Mara said, "We run into the fire or die waiting." Ash gasps, "It will swallow us." She snaps, "Better swallowed moving than standing still." Sable staggers, her breath shards of glass, yet her eyes ignite with defiance. Kade slinks at the edge, calculating where collapse will break first. Coyotes scatter, unwilling to step closer, their hunger undone by fear of flame. Talus cries overhead, his scream a blade lost in the roar. The desert splits with a new crack, glowing veins crawling underfoot. Mara shoves Ash forward, forcing his tiny legs to carry him faster. Sable said, "I will anchor the fire. Run." Ash pleads, "Don't leave," but her body already drags toward the fault. Smoke burns the sky into a veil of rust. The desert has no patience, and the fight must be spent now. The ground splits wider, and heat lashes upward like claws. Sable braces on trembling legs, her muzzle lifted in defiance. Mara shouts, "Move faster." Ash trips, paws bleeding, but rises with stubborn sparks in his eyes. Kade darts forward, not to help, but to seize path ahead. Mara snarls and lunges, her teeth grazing his flank. He hisses, strength feeds itself, then surges away. Sable coughs, a last breath, then charges sideways into the glowing crack, stones collapsing under her weight. Fire erupts, sealing one path behind them. Ash screams no, but Mara drags him on. Talus wheels above, furious at prey, lost to flame. Coyotes howl from the rim, voices ragged, retreating from fire's dominion. The desert swallows memory with smoke. Mara's throat burns with grief, but her body does not stop. The desert becomes a battlefield of ash and echo. Mara drives her body past exhaustion, each stride a rebellion. Ash whispers, "She's gone," his voice cracks. Mara answers, "She runs in us now." Kade races farther, his shadow slicing dust, but his path trembles with loose stone. Talus stoops, a red comet, aiming at Mara's spine. She twists, claws flaring sand into his eye, and he veers with rage. Coyotes vanish, their hunger outmatched by fire's cruelty. The air seethes, each breath like drinking knives. Mara said, "We outlast, or we end here." Ash gasps, "Then we outlast." The ground shivers, new fissures threatening to erase every step. Dust billows into choking curtains. Still they run, each heartbeat a strike of defiance against fate. Collapse roars behind them, stone walls grinding like teeth. Mara veers toward a canyon slit, its shadow a blade of hope. Ash wheezes, his sides rattling like hollow reeds. She said, "One more push." Kade scrambles first, claiming narrow passage. Mara snarls but follows, shoving Ash through. Talus claws at air, but the canyon swallows his reach. Heat swells behind, pressing them faster. Ash stumbles, then steadies in darkness, whispering, "We're still here." Mara nods, her body trembling but unbroken. Kade sneers, "Luck chooses me." Yet his eyes betray fear of fire's hunger pressing close. Stones fall, sealing parts of the path, trapping them in shadows thick with dust. Mara lifts her head and says, "This fight has no crown, only survivors." Fire consumes the clearing they left, but canyon air is thinner, cold against burned lungs. Mara collapses onto stone, Ash pressed against her chest, trembling but alive. "We endure," she whispers, though the word breaks at edges. Kade paces, restless, muttering, "The desert eats the slow." His voice sharp, but his eyes dart with unease. Talus screams once more, fading as smoke swallows his sky. Silence follows, heavy and absolute. Ash raises his head and whispers, "She gave herself." Mara answers, "So we carry her forward." The canyon groans, yet holds. For now. The desert has not chosen them, but neither has it erased them. And in that fragile pause, survival is theirs. Dawn filters into the canyon, pale and cold, cutting through ash. Mara lies still for a moment, her breath shallow but steady. Ash stirs, pressing against her ribs, eyes wide with fear and relief. Kade said, "The fire spent itself, but the land is still broken." His words hang sharp as flint. Mara forces herself upright, her muscles screaming, yet she steadies. Ash whispers, "We lived." She answers, "Living is not the same as safe." Rocks grind above, pebbles raining faint warnings. The canyon groans like a wounded beast. Talus circles faintly, distant, unwilling to surrender the hunt. Mara narrows her eyes, knowing patience is not mercy. The desert waits, silent and absolute, its judgment not yet finished. They climb from the canyon, paws scraping stone, lungs dragging smoke. Ash stumbles, his body small and raw. Mara steadies him with a touch of her shoulder. Kade climbs fast, using strength without looking back. He said, "The ridge holds wind, not safety." Mara snarls, "Then safety was never promised." Talus wheels overhead, his cry sharpened by hunger that survived the fire. Shadows stretch across scorched flats, cruel reminders of loss. Ash whispers, "Will the desert ever forgive?" Mara answers, "It doesn't forgive. It endures. And so must we." The ridge looms like a final gate, every step heavier than the last. At the ridge, wind cuts sharper, carrying Ash far away. Mara steadies Ash, whose legs quake but still move. He whispers, "I'm not small inside." She answers, "No, you are flame carried forward." Kade pauses, tail lashing, his gaze restless with hunger for advantage. Talus hovers close, shadow slicing ground like a blade. The horizon shows only wasteland, blackened thorn and endless dust. Sable's absence presses like a weight, but her strength lingers in every step Mara takes. Ash glances upward and says, "She walks with us?" Mara nods, the truth both knife and balm. The wasteland yawns endless, and hunger claws harder than flame. Mara lowers her head, scenting for the faintest trace of prey. Ash follows, mimicking her, his small nose brushing dust. Kade circles wide, muttering, "One day, I will not share." Mara bares her teeth but says nothing. Survival leaves no room for wasted rage. Talus dives, his shadow flashing like a sword, but he pulls away, testing patience. Ash whispers, "He waits for us to fall." Mara answers, "Then we will not." Her voice cracks but holds. The desert does not soften. It hardens what refuses to die. As the sun climbs, their shadows stretch long, thin threads of survival across broken ground. Mara staggers, but keeps Ash pressed close. He whispers, "The desert takes everything." She answers, "Yes, and still we fight." Kade halts, eyes narrowing, his body poised as if to abandon. Talus screams from above, a note sharp as fate. Ash lifts his head, defiance glowing in tired eyes. Mara said, "We do not bow." Her voice, though ragged, is steel. The wind howls across ash plains, carrying away memory, leaving only endurance. The desert gives no crown, no reward, only the right to breathe one more hour. The desert quiets, its violence folded into stillness. Mara leads Ash across the scorched flats, her body trembling but unbroken. Ash whispers, "The sky is bigger than the fire." She answers, "It always was." Kade lingers behind, his eyes sharp with doubt, torn between leaving and following. Talus hovers, his shadow stretched thin, patience burning low. The wind carries only ash and silence, yet each step forward feels heavier than the last. Mara lowers her head and whispers, "We walk for what was lost, and for what still breathes." Heat softens as twilight leans, painting stone in bruised violet. Ash stumbles, but Mara steadies him, her muzzle brushing his back. He whispers, "Are we the last?" She answers, "We are enough." Kade snarls low, hunger gnawing, but he keeps distance. Talus drifts lower, his cry sharp, yet his strike delayed by uncertainty. Sable's memory lingers, her sacrifice echoing in the silence. Mara said, "Her fire burns here," tapping her chest. Ash nods, carrying the weight of her words. The desert holds its breath, waiting for night's teeth to return. Night gathers, sharp and endless, stars cutting holes through the dark. Ash lifts his head and whispers, "She's watching us." Mara answers yes through every star that survives the fire. Kade halts at the ridge, eyes glinting with hunger and choice. He mutters, "The desert chooses none." Talus vanishes into the black sky, swallowed whole. Mara curls around Ash, their bodies pressed tight against wind's bite. Silence presses heavy, but within it beats the fragile rhythm of survival. Dawn returns pale, thin, not merciful, but steady. Mara rises stiff, eyes hollow, but burning. Ash wakes, blinking at the faint light. "We're still here," he whispers. She answers, "And that is enough." Kade emerges from shadow, gaunt, his tail low but his eyes alive. Talus does not return, his silence heavier than his cry. The horizon shows cracked plains stretching endless, yet no predator waits, only silence. Mara presses forward, Ash following, his small steps stitched with determination. The desert watches, indifferent, eternal. The sun sharpens again, but one truth remains, they are not gone. Mara halts at a dune's crest, Ash pressed close against her side. He whispers, "The desert took much." She answers yes, but not us. Behind, Kade lingers, a shadow uncertain. Above, the sky yawns wide, empty of Talus, empty of mercy. Silence stretches infinite, then Ash lifts his head and cries into the horizon, a small, defiant sound. The desert does not answer, but it does not silence him. The echo lingers, fragile yet unbroken.